Welcome back to another episode of Relaxed and Fast. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health in our modern society and things that you can do to make it a little bit better and cope with everyday life. If you guys enjoy this episode at any point in time, make sure you give us 5 stars on Spotify if you're listening there, or like and subscribe on YouTube if you're listening to us over there. The best way that you can share this podcast and get us out there if you do enjoy it is by sharing with a friend. That's where most people learn about podcasts. That's where most people will find their favorite podcast. So without further ado, guys, let's jump right into this episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to Relaxed and Fast. Today we're going to be talking about mental health, specifically for athletics, and just kind of in general in the world that we live in. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about our physical health over the last couple of weeks here, coming back onto campus. The Black Plague has taken us all out.
Dude, I don't even know what happened. I've been sick almost the whole time I've been here. First semester, I got dealt a terrible hand, obviously. But then, first 2 weeks of the semester are going good, and then slowly we just see everybody get taken out by the flu.
Oh my
Even
God,
Coach
dude.
gets taken out by it.
There was a girl in Allie's class who sat next to her who said she thought she had the flu. And I think that was the start of it.
Ugh.
Oh my God.
Dude.
So thanks to whoever you are, we all very much appreciate your germs. Don't go to class if you're that sick, people.
It's so it's terrible. It sucked. Like, I was out 4 days, and there was a point where I would get up and could not walk. I could not go to the bathroom without falling over because I was so dizzy. And it's just so funny because Noah Engel got it, right? And Noah Engel goes down. We're like, damn, Noah's out, but he's probably gonna be the only one. And then we finished the race on Saturday, the brown and gold meet on Saturday, and Nick immediately goes. He's like, I gotta go.
I'm dizzy.
He's like, I'm out. I'm dizzy.
I think it was 80% of the
me
team.
and Michael texted Nick because we were going to get dinner. The Union closed, right? So me and Michael were gonna go to Chipotle, and we text Nick yo, come to Chipotle, and he's like, I can't get out of bed, guys. Just go without me. And so we go to Chipotle, and we're like, oh, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. And then the whole girls team gets it. I get it. And then I
all of our alums got it.
Everybody got it.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my God. And for
Kelly
the
got
people,
it, Alyssa got
Really?
it.
for the people listening, it was most of our team. Probably 80-90% of our team.
I was talking
Gone.
to some people because they're like, oh, you're sick. I'm like, no, not just me. There's 15 people sick,
Yeah.
60 people sick.
I was one of the lucky few that did not get sick.
We were going to record, so the reason this episode is probably coming out either late or we missed a week, right, is because we were going to record, and I got it, and then I texted them and was like, I have it, I don't think we can do it. And then Eby texted and goes, I have it too, we're done.
I was like, oh, well, feel better, guys. And
Dylan was the only one that survived it. A few other people survived it. I don't know how Michael survived it. Michael's roommate had it, but Michael somehow survived it and is
Becky
okay.
hasn't gotten it.
Yeah.
She was at the table with all the alums.
Really?
She was at the meet with all of us. And she lives in the same house as me, so she doesn't have it. Hopefully she doesn't get it, because
Yeah.
I'll never hear the end of that.
It's
she'll look back at this podcast and be like, you jinxed it.
It's just it's just I had to go to my house, right? And so I was talking to my mom everybody has it because she was blaming the school a little bit. She's it's the school. I'm like, it's not the school.
Well,
Everybody
it was a random student on campus that started it.
She
But
been
it's
put in
inevitable.
conditions,
That's inevitable.
and I was I went to go eat with them Monday, and I was like, guys, I'm just sit way away from you, right? I'm just gonna sit on the other side of the table, and Dylan's like, it's everybody's been exposed at this point. Just sit with us. There's nothing
Because I'm if you don't go around us, someone's going to.
Yeah,
And
it's just it sucks, but what can you do about it? It's uncontrollable.
we're starting. We're over the hump at this point. Everyone's starting to feel better. I think Miles this morning texted our group chat. We were doing our pre-meet early in the morning. He goes, "Guys, I'm not gonna be there. I think I'm getting sick." I go, "Oh,
yeah, I read
we
that.
thought it was over.
Oh,
We thought it was over."
Yeah, he's okay.
I think
now.
he's feeling better.
He said he thought it was just allergies, but
What allergies?
yeah, that's what I said.
No
Well, that's what
pollen, it's 4 degrees outside.
Nate got sick, and I walked into the room Sunday, and he's like, "Oh, I'm super sick," and I was like, "Oh, really?" And then he went and took a shower. He's like, "I think it was just allergies." I'm like, it's January. Like, what allergies? Like,
I will say that
there's
dry
no pollen
air,
in the air yet.
the dry
no?
air does.
Yeah.
That's getting to me a
Are
little.
you allergic to air?
I am.
Like,
I am.
Like, are you
It's
allergic
very rare.
to
I walk
breathing?
outside and break out in hives.
I just like it's. I feel like it's harder to get winter out. Like fall allergies, yeah. Spring allergies, 100%. Some summer allergies, okay, but like I feel like there's not a lot of common winter allergies. At least this common for everybody to get.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
winter allergies.
there's like two different things.
All right. Let's get back. Let's get back.
Anyways, so
You two are feisty today. We gotta rein this in.
So, anyways, to our topic, we are going to look at mental health today. You know, in all aspects of life, obviously, but today we're obviously going to focus on running as well. I mean, that's the main focus.
That's all of our
This is
perspectives.
basically everybody's perspective. Everybody here's a runner, and I mean in the room. But so, anyways, we're going to look at some mental health. We have a few questions for you, Coach, and then we'll get into some rapid fire questions. But you know, obviously, we want to stick. This topic is the main thing, the most important thing we want to talk about, and I will say, and I will precursor, mental health is something huge on this team. It is something very well highlighted, I believe. I feel like Dylan would agree. You know, when we come in for cross-country camp, we have whole meetings. We had like 2 or 3 whole meetings, hour-long meetings, hour plus, of just mental health. And even today, we have Spire coming up tomorrow, and we had almost a talk today in the pre-meet meeting pertaining to that, of like coming up with race plans and getting your mind together, right? And so we see it a lot here, and I feel like that is a big thing highlighted in this program. So without further ado, we're going to ask you our first question here.
Sure.
And that first question is, what is it harder to train? Is it harder to train the brain, or is it harder to train your physical body, like your actual body, to do something?
I think there's more apprehension from people to train the brain. I think as far as we've come, even from the time that I was in school until now, you know, there's less of a stigma with mental health, but I still think there is a stigma with mental health. It's interesting because I'll always try to bring up the topic of mental fitness within the recruiting talks that I have when they come to campus. And one of the questions I'll ask them is how much, what percentage do you think is mental versus physical of racing? And most of the time it's 90% mental and it's 10% physical, or it's 70% mental and it's 30% physical. The lowest they'll usually go is it's 50%, 50%. And then I follow that up with, well, how much time do you actually spend on the mental aspect versus the physical? And most of them just kind of blankly stare at me, and I'm like, so 0 is the answer to that question. And some of the kids will be like, I visualized my race, you know, the night before. And I'm like, okay, so you are telling me that this is 90% of your importance, and you're spending 99% of your time running, and 1% maybe on the mental side.
Maybe.
And so making it part of your routine is so unbelievably important. And you know, and so I think it's harder to convince people to do the brain training because it's something that I talk a lot about it, but I haven't figured out how to squeeze more time into a day, right? And so how can we squeeze that into practice? And maybe we do just need to take time to do it. Maybe Fridays we have our quick meeting and then we go and spend 30 minutes doing mental training. I don't know. I don't know how to go about doing
And
that.
Bad idea.
I think that something I've encountered that's very interesting is on the physical side with training, everyone somewhat, when it comes to a workout, is going to get the same thing, the same benefit from a workout. Obviously, you've got cross trainers, but that's a different conversation.
Oh.
But when it comes to mental training and preparing yourself mentally for the discomfort that you're putting yourself through in a race, everyone is different. One of my teammates in high school, when I was starting to struggle with my pre-race anxiety, and it's something I've always struggled with, I go up to him, I'm like, dude, you always run so incredibly fast in these races. And I'm like, how do you cope with the pain you're going to put yourself through? He just goes, I just run. He goes, he has never had a problem with being nervous because he knows I'm going to go out there and run, and that's built into his brain. But there's other people that are very, very apprehensive going on the line. Oh my God, I have to do this and this and this and this and this and this. Yeah. So it takes more to rein in your feelings, and some people respond better to journaling, and some people respond better to the Wim Hof and the meditation. Yeah. So that's another reason people are very apprehensive of the mental training, because it's a different avenue, you know.
I think the other piece to this is that, and we've talked about this before already, but everybody wants instant gratification. Yeah. And so I'll give them something to try. They try it once, it doesn't go well, and they're like, well, this doesn't work, I'm not doing it anymore.
And
it's
don't stick with it.
Well, if you did one run the entire summer and showed up to the time trial and expected it to go well, how do you think, well, it wouldn't go very well. Exactly. Well, no crap, it wouldn't go well. You've done one time. You did this one thing once. Do you think that you're automatically just going to be that much better at it after doing it one time? It's called training for a reason, and you need to train it, and you need to consistently do it, and you need to find routines, and you need to find, is journaling your thing, and how can you incorporate journaling into the visualization aspect, and how do you do visualization, and do you watch a bunch of videos online and then imagine yourself being in those positions and watching a race, and the Olympic 1500 from this past summer, go and watch every single guy and watch what they do throughout the race, or watch every single woman and watch what she did throughout every single one of those different races, because everybody has a different race plan and how they go about it and how they got to where they were and when they made moves and how they made their moves. And there might be somebody that's up front early that fades back late and don't want to do that, and so you have to watch and then try to find people that match your racing style, and then go watch their races and watch when they're successful, watch when they're not successful, and start to learn lessons from everybody else, so that you're not trying to do it all on your own. And then you can start to journal out after you've watched all these races. Journal out how you want your race to go and what you need to envision. And having details can be good, but having details can also paint you into a corner, because if something comes up. And so once again, figuring out what works for you and how you can go about doing it. But most races play out similarly. And there's a couple different styles of races that are going to happen. If you're going to Boston or if you're going to Stanford, those are going to be time trials. How are you going to set yourself up to be really successful there? You're going to nationals, it's a mixed bag. It could be slow and big kick. It could be go out hard and hang on. Like, it could be anything in between, because you just don't really know what you're going to get in some of those types of environments, because not everybody wants to be Jakob and just go to the front and do all the work for everybody else. And so if Jakob doesn't go, who's going to take it? Somebody needs to take it at some point in time, because if not, you're going to end up with Matt Centrowitz winning in 352 or whatever he ran in 2016, right?
So you basically answered our second question. So to replace that, I just want to, going off of what you were just saying, how much do you think that race tactics and obviously your plan going into the race relates to your mental health and your mental preparedness?
I know personally, when I was on, I was really on. And I would stand on the line, and I felt like I could win just about any race that I was in. If or I was at least going to put myself in a position to go for a win. When I was off, I was really off. And I would put myself in more of a position of, well, last year I ran this time, and last year I hit these splits, and I was so focused on that stuff, and I would come through and I'd be a half second off. Well, last year I was a half second fast, well, this race, and then I'd start worrying, and I got to pick it up because I'm not going to be on pace for the next one, and it would just spiral downward. And so, I think, once again, finding what works for you. And sometimes you have to throw a bunch of stuff against the wall to see what sticks. And throwing darts. We talked about that, I think, in one of the other times. Sometimes you got to throw a bunch of darts to figure out what works. But we talk about this a lot, too. Hone your routine. So that's not just your race routine. It's your warm-up routine. It's your the night before routine. It's your week leading up routine. It's all of those things lead into having the confidence to go perform at your best and handling different situations and all of that type of stuff. So I strayed a little bit there and kind of forgot the question, but hopefully
that's pretty on the mark. And I think going off the last point that you just said, that's something that has really helped me. Most of the time, if you can just get your schedule figured out and you can get into a routine, most of that anxiety will go away. Obviously, I say most of it because there's some stuff you can't control. But if you can just find the stuff that works for you, the warm-up and the pre-race and the stuff you eat the night before, and get all that stuff figured out, then it's smooth sailing, you know?
Well, then it becomes more routine.
Exactly.
And you're more relaxed in your own, because this is just what I do.
I've done this before.
This is what I do, right? And personally, as a freshman who just figured out all this stuff, 6 months ago, I was hurt, so didn't have a lot of time to.
You're figuring we're all figuring this stuff out.
I'm still figuring it all out, right? So for me personally, not to shift the focus to me, but for me personally, it's very hard to still discover that. I'm still discovering that in this process. But what I wanted to take out of what you just said is a lot of this goes back to the same kind of underlying theme of the Good versus Great episode where we talked about consistency and the discipline of keep trying, and you said throwing darts, right? And you keep trying, no instant gratification. It's not going to just happen overnight or happen after one attempt. And I think that's something good to take that ideology and put that into mental health. It's not going to take one therapy session for you to fix all your problems, right? It's not going to take one journaling session for you to feel good. It's not going to take, one race that you watch to now become some professional racer. You have to do it all the time, over and over again, day after day, intentionally, week after week. And eventually that's all going to compound into something. And that even goes, if we look back into the episode about good versus great, that even goes along with becoming great. Because you now have a great mental health to go along with the skill you've developed. And now that all comes together into one big, great athlete. Which is, I think, a great way to look at it. So when you say, you got to keep trying again, I think that's a really good take. Because you do have to keep figuring it out. And the other thing about mental health is, when we look at that first question, like what's harder to train, the brain or the body, in my opinion, they're both extremely hard to train, obviously, right? But they're a different type of training because not even just like through like the actual physical difference of like you don't do push-ups with your brain, like physically doing push-ups with your brain, but you train it in a different way, right? And it's a different type of difficult, right? So you look at like journaling is hard. It's hard to be honest with yourself, right? Going to therapy is difficult, right? And there's a lot of people who won't admit that they're in that. For a long time, I wouldn't admit that I was in it, right? So it's like, that's a different type of difficult, right? So I think when we look at that question, you can see that it is really hard to train to become this fast runner and run like 75, 80, 100 miles a week and go out and run some crazy time. It's super difficult and super painful. It's also super difficult and super painful in a different way to train your brain.
And it's all about doing things that you aren't necessarily comfortable with. Because I remember over break, my family, we went to Mass for Christmas. And I hadn't went in a while, and we're sitting there during church, and my brain just starts thinking, and I'm thinking. And I get out of that Mass, and I go over to my dad, I'm like, I need to be more intentional about just spending more time thinking. Because I think, obviously, we live in a world where we've always got our phones. We've always got music in. We've always got something going on. And especially when you're doing athletics, when you're racing, when you're practicing, you don't have that. Maybe there's music playing in the background, but it is you versus your own body, 99.9% of the time. So it's important that you find a way that you're not, if you can't just sit by yourself and not start thinking and getting scared and that anxiety, then how are you going to do it during a race? How are you going to deal with that when you're also putting your body through an immense amount of stress? So it's about breaking it down into those little pieces as well.
Another thing is that I wanted to highlight, there's like so many ideas that pop through my head with this, is the fact of comparison, right? And I know it's a little off topic of what we're talking about, but I think it's just a good time to put it in of like, so many athletes compare themselves to not only their teammates, but other people that they might know on other teams. And that's something I did in high school a lot. I knew, like, even me and Dylan grew up two cities away from each other. I knew all of Dylan's team in high school. They love me over there. But, I used to compare myself to those kids. I used to compare myself to other people on my team and stuff. In comparison, a lot of athletes suffer from that, of comparing themselves to others, and that can affect that mental health. And even now, when I go through and try to journal and stuff, I find that comparison. So for anybody listening, just like, side note, work on not comparing yourself to others, because comparison, as they say, is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. And I will get on the line and start comparing myself to others, and when you have a bad race or a bad game or a bad day, you compare it to the other dude that didn't, where you should just be comparing you to you.
Well, in our society, we always are comparing ourselves to everybody's perfect, mm-hmm. right? And it's a falsity. Like, everything that's online gets lipstick on it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's made to look prettier than it really is. And I think that's really hard, too, because it's easy to talk about the legends of the program, and like Tim Budick was national runner-up in the steeplechase and had this phenomenal end to his senior career and all of this stuff. He had a lot of seasons where he was hurt, too.
Yeah.
And he almost was hurt that senior season, too. Like, he pretty much had a stress fracture and found a way to cross-train through it and made it out on the other side. That's not always how the story can end. Mine did not end that way, right? I went the other way and ended up breaking my leg, and that was how my senior year ended. And so I think there's a lot of times where people just see that shiny outcome at the end, mm-hmm. forget about all the hard things that you have to go through to get to that point, too. And so I think that comparison point makes it tough. It makes it even harder now, especially now with the access to training logs, the access to Instagram,
Strava. Yeah.
Strava is a training log.
Yeah, as good as an app Strava is.
Yeah.
And as much as I like screwing with Dylan in his comment section, it is also really bad. It is also really bad for you. You know what I mean? And
it's in the same way that Instagram.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
And
right?
we can even relate what you just said back to that good versus great episode we did, because from the surface, people like Jakob Ingebrigtsen look perfect and so talented, and the dude's talented, right? But we don't see the miles of work that he put in, and the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that training, into that one successful performance, right? That you just watched, right? So I think even with mental health, nobody's perfect, right? But everybody has this preconceived notion of the people who do succeed at some given point,
right?
And even I could compare it in high school. A girl on my team was generational, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, she's so good. Like, I wish I had that kind of talent that she has. But when I got to know her, she had her own problems, and she was working on fixing them.
We're all fighting our own demons.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's why trying to give people grace, and something I struggle with, I know, and trying to help them through the fight that they're in, I think is important too.
Yeah, and part of that is also, we mentioned this last episode, everyone's definition of perfect, or their perfect, is different. Mm-hmm. Jakob Ingebrigtsen's definition of perfect for him is obviously winning all these Olympic titles. Your definition of perfect might be making a conference meet, scoring at so it's about not looking at that and being like, oh my God, everything that I've done here is for nothing, because look at this guy who's making millions and millions of dollars.
I mean, ultimately, the goal of all of this is to try to just become the best version of you that you mm-hmm. can be, and to try to learn life lessons along the way. And so, and I think that's kind of coming back to everybody's a little different. Some things work better for other people, but trying to give you all as many tools as I can, try to throw as many thoughts and ideas out there as I can. I do think there are some really core principles with all the different books I've read, with all of my own experiences of ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. I think a really big piece is, essentially, and I've talked about this before too, but are you talking to yourself or are you listening to yourself? negativity works 100% of the time, and it's 100% negative all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are you going to? And that is what default is negative.
Yeah.
And so, are you going to listen to what your body is telling you? Because your body doesn't want you to run as hard as we're trying to make it. It wants to go back to homeostasis and sitting here and we're all good and copacetic and feeling okay. It doesn't like its heart rate being 190 and redlining for 2, 3, 4, 15, 30 minutes at a time. And so figuring out where your sticking point is and having your game plan of what are the thoughts that produce consistent performances for me and how do I reproduce those in the most stressful moments. Because as you mentioned, not only is mental health a really challenging thing just in and of itself on a daily basis, but then you're putting your body under the most duress that you possibly can and trying to keep your mental health together.
Yeah.
And so having a plan of what am I going to say to myself at the different points in time during the race and what does a good execution of this race look like? If you don't at least have that to start with, then you're throwing darts, but you're blindfolded and you've been spun around and you're in the dark.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea where you're going to throw this thing at, and maybe you're going to hit.
More variables.
Yeah, maybe you're going to hit, but the chances are it's going to be a lot more challenging to do that than if you have a plan written down. And then once again, if there are things with that plan that don't go really well, try to pick out the things that went well or try to try something new the next time, and that's how you start to build that actual race routine. Mm-hmm. So
it's just the talking to yourself or listening to yourself idea is really interesting to me because through my own mental battle, which I've, especially the last 2 years of high school, has started to became self-noticing about. Right, like that I do have, like I am like this in a race or I am like that, and it depends on the day is interesting because I've had races I've gone into like, damn, I'm gonna race terrible, like I don't want to race, like this sucks, like this is gonna suck, this is going to be terrible, and I'll go in and run a PR or something and be like, wow, and it actually didn't even hurt at all, right, and I didn't even feel bad, but my hamstring was tight 3 days ago, and for some reason I'm still pissed off about it, right? Like so it's interesting to think. Are you talking to yourself or you're listening to yourself, where a lot of the time people are listening to themselves, but then when you do figure out you can just talk to yourself and ignore listening to yourself, there is a lot of...
There's levels to it.
There's so much levels to it, because I have talked to myself before and been so successful, but a lot of the time I forget to talk to myself and start listening to myself, and I become unsuccessful.
How you're feeling leading into a race has nothing to do with your fitness level.
So last year at the Milrose Games, Hobbs Kessler in his post race interview, I thought this was really, really cool that he mentioned this. He said, I stepped up to the line. I didn't want to race. I felt terrible. Mentally I wanted to be at home sleeping in my bed. He's like, I just felt awful. But I was like, I'm here. We're just going to go give it a try. He ended up having a pretty freaking incredible race. I don't remember exactly what he did, but I remembered it was a pretty huge breakout race for him. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, yeah, it helps to have a good... You want to do as much as you can for your mental health, but there's going to be days where there's nothing you can do about it, and you just need to jump into the deep end of the pool, essentially.
We can start talking about Navy SEAL training a little bit too, right? You don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And so if you can get your confidence level and your fitness level to a certain base, you can always fall back to that no matter what is going on. Mm-hmm. And so that if you know that you can get yourself to where even a solid day is going to achieve you some of the goals that you're looking to get, then you can walk away with your head held high is ultimately, I think, what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
The ability and the consistency of the training is where you should be building your confidence from. Where I start to struggle, because I always gained a ton of confidence from my training. My training was going well. I was probably racing pretty well at that point, too, because I always just felt like I was on top of the world. Mm-hmm. Where I struggle is where kids will have unbelievable workouts, and then they can't get it done in the race. It's like, dude,
Which
what's
was a huge deal during cross country this past year.
Yeah.
Was that, and even I noticed tons of us were having insane workouts, and you would come by and be like, we can't get this done in the race. We need to figure this out now, because if we get this done in the race, this is going to be a next level thing. And so that's interesting that you bring that up, because that was a huge deal in cross this past year. And even going off what you said with what you said with not feeling good, right before the brown and gold meet, the night before, I was with a few guys on the team, and I was freaking out. I was like, this is my first race, right? And I feel terrible. I'm sore from the workout that we had earlier in the week. I feel terrible, right? I'm going to run terrible. And I'm stretching. I'm sitting there rolling, right? And Michael looks at me. He's like, fitness beats feeling.
Yes.
Oh,
He's like,
I like that. Fitness beats feeling.
And he goes,
Put that,
and
write that down.
and he was like, and I was saying I'm going to run a 10:45 3K. And I'm like, I'm not even going to break 10 in it. I was like, I'm going to run god-awful in this thing. And he goes, dude, fitness is going to beat feeling. You've been running some good workouts. You'll be fine. And then I went out there, and I went under 10. Wasn't happy with it, but I did better than I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
In all that stress, I was stressing over things that weren't even a reality. I was. What am I going to do after the race if I go off the left part of the track and I get hit by somebody? You know what I mean? Some fantasy, right? That didn't even matter, right? And he was just like, dude, relax. You're fit. You ran this 5K workout, or these 800s at faster than your goal 5K pace, and you felt fine. And he's like, I don't know what you're freaking out about. You were even more sore during that workout, and was trying to calm me down. And it's hard to listen to somebody else, but I just thought that's a real that happened a week ago. Mm-hmm. That's a real time example of something of freaking out, and then the race goes way better than you expected. You know what I mean? And it's really interesting. It's kind of a sick phenomenon. It's just people's mind create false scenarios around them, and I just wonder why.
It's a protection.
Mm-hmm. It's protection.
Your brain is trying to protect you from something, some other trauma you've had.
Which is where you get into the doc lock parts stuff.
Yeah.
He would be an interesting guy to get on here to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, we will definitely.
Yeah,
and
to get doc lock.
Another whole aspect of a mental thing that I just remembered as we're talking about this is, you always mention this before this, your arousal state.
Yep.
What kind of level do you need to be at? And that's something that I really battled with during cross-country season, because I've always known I'm somebody, and I think this goes for a lot of people, you want to be pretty light on your feet before a race. You want to be pretty joyous, but you don't want to just be like, oh, this doesn't matter, freaking out and super energetic. So it's about finding that level for you, and something that we have really done an incredible job at, I think, during this time trial and this alumni meet, was keeping the team arousal level, because I think your team arousal level and your individual arousal level are a little bit different. And the team arousal level has been very good. Everyone's been everyone is focused and ready to go, but we're joking with each other. And someone comes up to me, dude, I don't know about this, I'm nervous. We're good. I had a lot of people coming up to me and saying, dude, I'm sore, I was killed from this week. I go, so am I. We're going to go out and give this is what I told everyone. We're going to go out and we're going to give this 100%. 100% might be a 4-minute 1K. But we're going to go out and give it 100. No, but we're going to go out and give it 100%. And I said, we're going to see what happens. And it ended up being a tactical race. We ended up going out slow, but we had a crazy pack in that first heat. And I go, what did I just say? That was easy. That went great.
And after that 1K, I will say that we got back from our warm-up for the 3K, and that level was still there. Because there is a video, and I'll put it in the episode, right now. There is a video, and it's me and Sam yelling, we are back, we are ready to go, and, even Dylan was sitting there, we're ready to go, let's do it, and, everybody around us was let's go out there and just rip this 3K, let's get it done, and stuff, and, I thought that was sick. I hadn't seen that too much, or maybe not to that level, but everybody was super positive and ready to go. There's maybe a select few that were super dialed into a way of not too serious, but almost mad that they had to deal with this pain that they were about to go through, or deal with this race like it wasn't their day. And again, different people have different ways of getting ready for a race, whether that's being super serious and super dialed in or in the moment, right? But there maybe was a very small minority that was like that, where a vast majority of us were like, let's go. Even kids that did not have their best day in the 1K were coming up to us like, let's get it done. It's the 3K. Really and they weren't even racing the 3K. They're like, let's get it done. I'll be out there. Get ready. Here we go. You got 15 minutes.
There's definitely something to the synergy, and every team has its own personality to it as well. So everybody has their own personality, but every team has their own personality. But yeah, that's really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
That's really good stuff. And when people start to feed off of each other, and it does become infectious, and then the ball starts to roll, and he was just successful, so I can be successful too. And all of the really good teams that I've coached, that's kind of you just get momentum going during the season, and things start to go, and then it just becomes this us against the world mentality, and off to the races.
And that is what Dylan said, that is infectious. And I think that positive, not this in a spiritual way, but that positive energy kind of has a result. And that result being super positive going into something, you're more bound to get a positive result instead of just being like, oh, this is going to suck. It's more bound to suck because now you think it's going to suck.
Well, that's what people say with manifestation. Manifestation isn't a magical thing. You're not willing something
in
existence. You are making yourself positive, and you are telling your brain, we are going to do this. And maybe it's not going to work out, but just by you thinking, this is going to work out, this is going to go this way, you are more willing to go after that. Your brain is more accustomed to going after that.
That law of attraction of putting the positive vibration out and getting it back.
Yeah, and it goes the other way too.
And you can also, you can put that negative crap out too. And there is some study out there, don't cite me on this, I saw this somewhere, that there is some study where where it wasn't on TikTok. There is some it might have been Instagram. But there is some study where it's if you think a positive thought for more than 17 seconds, that compounds in your subconscious mind, and you think more and more, and the world is more able to give you positive experiences to go off of or something.
It's doing gratitude journaling.
Yeah, exactly.
And positive reaffirmations and all of those things can be really, really helpful too. It's just, when you get down in the muck and the mire, other people want to pull you down there too. Yeah. And that's not good.
And a lot of people pull you down because they don't want to see you
be successful, because they don't know, they just like to wallow in their own opinion. So once again, the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, you like what you see, and are they helping lift you up? Are they helping make you a better person, or are they making you a worse person?
Exactly.
So
making those types of decisions.
To anyone listening right now, I want to give you a challenge. If anyone here is a racer or any kind of sport, Oh my god, I can't do this. So next time you're in a race or a competition, and you start battling with yourself, and you start getting that mental thing, smile. Physically smile. Toothy grin. This is something that if you live in the Ohio area and you're at all involved in track and field, you might know the name Milk Place. He was my coach in high school, and he passed away a few years ago, but he used to always say during my freshman and sophomore year, when you're racing and you hate it, that's when you smile. And Brian Kerrigan, one of our top guys at the time, he started with a 19 flat in the 5K. And first race, he smiled and he broke 16. A couple races after that, had an incredible breakout race. And there is a picture of him. I remember there is a picture of him. They put it up on the slideshow at the end of the year thing, and he's looking at the camera, just freaking smiling ear to ear. And we all laughed about it, but he was the first person to always say how powerful that positive affirmation is. Just tricking yourself into, I'm here to have fun. You would not be doing this if you didn't want to do this, and it's one of the most effective ways I have found is just tricking yourself. Like, dude, we're having fun. There's nothing here that I'm not used to, you know?
So Jeff Howard from Woodridge has won a billion state championships and taken teams to the Nike Nationals and all that kind of stuff. He's been kind enough to let me go observe practice a handful of times, which has been awesome, just getting to kind of watch him work and pick his brain. And but the two things that he would say when they're running their hill sprints is smile on our faces and it's always better together. And there you go, the power of positivity and the power of group and community and you know, suffering together and enjoying the process and all the things that, you know, we try to talk about and preach, and just getting the people to buy into it is really the key
That's
thing.
the BYU women's coach. They're doing this gut-wrenching workout. We're having fun. That's all she ever said.
Even going off that, I just finished the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah,
it's a great book. 100% recommend. But one of the studies that they show in there, and I told Dylan this like 3 times because I found it profound. I thought it was fascinating. Is one of the studies they show is they have a line on a card, and then on the other card they have 3 lines, right? A, B, and C. One of the lines on the card matches the singular line, right? And what they'll do is they'll put 2 dudes in a room. One of them is an actor, one of them is a test subject, and they'll be like, which line does this match, right? And the actor will purposely get that wrong, right? And the dude in there will just be like, this guy's an idiot, and guess against him. With 2 people, he'll do the same, right? But once there's about 3 or 4 people, he will conform to whatever the group is saying, even if he knows it is wrong or right? So the more group you have, whether it is negative or positive, if you have a negative group of people, you are going to be brought down to that level, a wrong group, right? But if you have a positive group, you will be brought up to that level. And that's why I think be positive, like we're in this together, is such a great, ideology in that team aspect. Is because if everybody on the team is like, we're getting through this and this is going to be a great day whether we feel like crap or not, whether it hurts or not, right? That's going to bring the person who is sitting there in their head neurotically thinking like, this is going to hurt, this is going to suck, like I suck, right? That's going to bring them back up. And it's definitely happened on this team. It's definitely happening on this team. I've seen it firsthand, experienced it firsthand, but I thought that's a great example of like, it is scientifically proven that one will conform to their group. Yep. And you can also even put that back into like surrounding yourself with the right people, the 5 people you surround yourself with. Yeah. You conform with that group. Yep. So that's there's so many layers to mental health, by the way. Like this is just one layer of millions, but like that is a perfect way it is scientifically proven that group aspect of everybody's positive, you are more likely to be positive. Everybody's negative, you are more likely to be negative. Yep. And I've even seen that in high school. We had a team of negative guys, and it was easier to be negative. Yep. And now we have a team of positive guys. It's way easier to just be hyped up before the race and be like, let's go, we got it, doesn't matter, right? In a bad race, well, those guys are going to still be there for you, be positive for you. And that is your now, mental protection, safety net is my team's got my back, and they believe in me. But switching gears a little bit here, I just said there's layers to mental health, right? Another layer I would say is mentality. And so I have an interesting question. I wrote this the other night is, what type of mentality did you have when you were competing?
As I said, I was kind of really, really on or really, really off. There wasn't a whole lot on it between for me. When I was on, my mentality was I'm just going to go win this race, and that was my sole focus, and I'm going to try to put myself in a position to try to win the race, and I always felt pretty good. There were a handful of guys that I ran up against that, 150 meters to go, it was going to be a heck of a race, and it kind of depended on who made the move first, but I usually felt pretty confident in my ability to kick coming into the last 200 in most situations, and so just trying to get myself to the point where I was in it with 200, 150, 100 meters to go, and then just see what I got coming down the home stretch. I think when you get, and once again, a lot of that comes from the confidence and training and all of those types of things as well. when you can get to that point where you're standing on the line and you're just like, it's time to hurt. It's time to hurt, boys. We're gonna test our limits today, and we're gonna see what we can do. And I'm just gonna let it ride, and I'm gonna try to ride that fine line as hard as I can for as long as I can, and go from there. But as I said, I also have been on the flip side of that, where the negative thoughts can spiral too, and we didn't really talk about any of this stuff back in the day. It was just kind of you were either good at it or you weren't.
Yeah.
Obviously, what really struck me was you mentioned your ups and downs. You have your bad days and you have your good days. So something that I really, really thought about over break was that, what is the difference between my good days and bad days? What is the common denominator and what's different, especially? And I think back to my race at Terre Haute over cross country. That was by far my best race over cross country. And I think, what was different? I was saying it before the race. I had a feeling in my chest. I had a feeling in my heart. Something is going to happen. Something is going to go well. And I've had that feeling before. I go, where does that come from? Because it's not something magical. It's got to come from somewhere. And what I've kind of brought it down to is that confidence. And that's what we keep coming back to. And that's what that seems the theme of this mental health thing. How can you find that confidence? And that ended up being a race at a venue I had raced at before, Terre Haute. That's where we used to do NXR back in the day. And for me, you can draw that confidence from a lot of different sources. So swinging it over to you, how big of a role do you think that confidence plays in your success? Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I think confidence is such a huge piece. I think, trying to not get too high with the highs, trying to not get too low with the lows. The New Balance Boston group, they talk about, we're just trying to get on base with every workout. We're not trying to have A+ workouts every single workout. I'll take straight B's on workouts because B's will lead to A races. And because if you're hitting A+ workouts, then you're probably also going to have a C workout in there someplace too. Whereas if you're just really consistent getting B level workouts, then you're going to slowly start to build your fitness, and your confidence can start to come from that. But I do think, keeping in mind that having a really good workout is awesome, and having a really good long run is awesome, and putting weeks together is awesome, but you got to consistently do that for months and years at a time, and just, once again, not getting too high with the highs. When you get injured, okay, I'm injured, what can I do? The alive time versus dead time thing, right? What can I do in this moment to keep trudging away, keep gaining fitness, keep heading in the direction that I want to? And that's the challenge, right? Is trying to figure out how, there are people that will have great weeks and months and years of training, and they're still not confident in that. And so that comes back to therapy sessions, right? Where does that come from, and what is the inside out? What is the little person inside of you trying to tell you, to protect you from something else that's gone on, or somebody that hurt you in some way down the back in your past, and now it's coming out and rearing its ugly head, and you don't realize what's going on. But ultimately, that's where I gained all my confidence from, was from these really good workouts. That's where I tried to help all of you gain confidence from, and that's why I keep records of all of these workouts, so that I can pull out a workout from, Reese Byers, who ran 13:58, or, Eduardo Vasquez, who, was a 150 guy, and so on and so forth, and compare, they started here and they ended up here, and how can you get from point A to point B, and all that kind of stuff too.
And I think...
Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that answers the question perfectly. And something that I've heard, I don't know exactly who came up with this, where this comes from. I've heard this from Olympians talk about this. I've heard my old coach talked about this, is the rule of thirds. You mentioned a lot of your confidence comes from workouts, and that's where it should come from. But obviously a race is more important than a workout, so you need to be able to have that mindset of something. You're going to have a bad workout. So basically the rule of thirds is a third of your workouts are going to be really, really good. A third of them are going to be average, like a B workout, like you said, and a third of them are going to be really, really bad. So if you are having too many really good workouts, then that might be a way that you can think, hey, maybe we can make it a little bit harder. We can step it up a little bit and push myself a little bit more. If you're having a lot of really, really bad workouts, you can think, maybe I'm doing too much mileage. Maybe I need to cross-train, yada, yada, yada. But it's a cool way to look at it because even if something is going wrong with these workouts, it's a way you can think of, hey, this is part of the process. Mm-hmm. I've listened to podcasts with all these Olympians talking about, before I had this great race, like a week before, I had a terrible workout, and I started thinking, oh my God, my life is over. This race is going to go terrible. But then they take a step back and they go, but what about these months and months and months of workouts that I put in before this that went good and great? One workout isn't going to define anything. Just like one race isn't going to define anything.
And one workout also doesn't mean that you're going to go run a great race either.
Exactly.
Like
it goes both directions.
Both ways.
It goes both directions.
Yeah. I feel like confidence is just such like a huge. It's a game changer. I've gone into races fully confident and ran some of the craziest times I've ever ran. You know what I mean? For me, at least. And then I've gone into races with zero confidence and absolutely assured my own negative thoughts exactly what's happening. And then once you assure yourself of those negative thoughts, once you start entertaining and assuring them, you dig a hole. And I also look at like the therapy stuff that you were talking about and like, what happened to my past and whatever, and that goes back into like the parts that we talked about a little, we referenced earlier, and that Doc Locke talks about, and I would hope that we have an episode with him on it, because if you get him going on the parts,
he wants to be on it.
Yeah, we will get that man. That guy and the parts stuff. You get him on there. Get him on 2 separate ones talking about how good he is at his job, and also the parts stuff. The parts stuff is difficult. Yeah. And when we going back to even like how hard it is to train the body and the mind, I have worked so hard to train the mind with the part stuff, and it is hard, dude. It is hard to organize those thoughts and put them out, and you're supposed to vomit, but it's hard to, pick through the vomit and find what makes sense together and what goes together. It's hard to build that puzzle. So when we go back to that, I just thought I'd put those two ideas together of how hard it is in going back and through that, and to show really how hard it is, but how important it really is in the grand scheme of things.
And I think it all, to kind of come full circle here, like, it needs to be part of your training. You need to be consistent with it. You need to really work at it. Just like, the first long run you ever did in your entire life probably wasn't the best one that you've done, right? It probably wasn't even as good as the last one that you did. And, or even a bad day would be now, right? And so if you can continue to raise the floor so that your bottomed out is higher than it has been before, you're just going to continually get better. But it's something that you have to continue to chip away at. It's something you have to be intentional about. It's something you have to spend time on. And everybody says, "Oh, Coach, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do it." Well, hand me your phone and let me see your screen time.
Yeah.
I will find you 6 hours of your day.
Which the screen time also, if you're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, can hit your mental health harder. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
I was just reading an article. It says,
especially or like
it
if
hurts your sleep, it hurts your mental health.
And it's also just like, let's say for example, it's like the 4th of July and you had no plans, and you go on Snapchat and you see everybody else has plans, and now you have this fear of missing out and this crippling loneliness sneaking up on you, right? It's like that social media. You wouldn't have known that 20 years ago when nobody had social media.
And it's like you mentioned earlier, there's a place for everything, but it's about finding a balance.
The balance,
what you're doing.
And the other thing is, with that, when I first started, like, I was young. I was in like middle school, early high school when I first started incorporating recovery into my everyday routine. And my brother told me, make recovery as part of the training. Recovery is the equivalent to going on the run. Yep. So is mental health. And I feel like people need to view it as like, mental health is the equivalent of recovery, and that's also the equivalent of going on a run. Yep. It is the equivalent to the training. It's equivalent to going onto the track and doing a workout. Like,
our sport is so holistic. Like, it's a lifestyle. It's not a side thing that you're doing. Like, it needs to be incorporated into all that you're doing. And honestly, so many pieces of what we do going to help you for the rest of your life so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that's my hope, is that you accidentally, if nothing else, you accidentally learn life skills in the process of being part of the program.
And something I noticed from the jump from senior in high school to freshman in college was the highlight on, like, here are new tactics on how to mentally break down your game. I knew therapy and journaling. I didn't know how those could affect running, though. And when you come in, you sit us down, you're like, this is how it affects it. This is how you use it to affect your running. And once you learn and master this, you'll be fine. Like, and I thought that was really important, and that was something I noticed immediately coming in.
I think I have one more story I want to mention, and then we can get into the rapid fire questions and we can close it up. Relating to confidence, last year, outdoor conferences, we were warming up for the 4x8 on day one of conferences. And we all knew, like, some special stuff had been coming together, like puzzle pieces had been clicking slowly, so we kind of knew this was the day. Something was going to happen here. So no one was really saying it out loud, but everyone knew, like, this 4x8 was going to be pretty special. And I remember we are warming up in the hallway of we're Heidelberg, and we're just standing there, and everyone was kind of normal pre-race nerves, a little bit nervous. And then Sam comes through and he starts talking about some meme he saw online. He starts quoting some meme, and we all just start dying laughing. And then there was like a tackling dummy in the hallway, and Tuck goes over and like pushes it over, and then we're all just like for the whole rest of the warm up we're laughing, and the vibes are just, and it goes back into what we were saying earlier with we were all confident, so we were able to have fun. We were able to enjoy what we were doing, and then we went out and we ended up running 7:42, and we got podium at the conference meet, and we went way faster than I think any of us thought we were going to be able to. It ended up being a really freaking special day, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So
this is also why it's good that I'm not around you guys.
Yeah, like you said, you just admitted that like they tackled it, like to him, but
it's okay.
What I want to highlight about that story is you see how such a positive memory that is now, and to be honest, I can remember the day I ran my lifetime PR in cross country in high school, but I can't remember some of the absolutely awful races. Like, obviously, you take from them, you learn from them, but like, I'm not looking back and harping like, oh, that sucks so bad. Like, I'm more like, when I think about, oh, what have I ran, I look back into like the positive memories over the negative.
The things to think about is will this be important an hour from now? Will this be important a day from now? Will this be important a week from now? Will it be important a year from now, 10 years from now?
Yeah.
If the answer is no to any of those things, just let it go. Don't worry about it. Move on to the next thing that you're trying to do.
So, all right, I think we'll get it into these rapid fire questions, and we can close it out.
These are the best. Do you have any other ones that you wanted to add? Because I threw 5 on here that I think we could spark some conversation on. If you had any more, feel free to. But I'm going to start. One that we didn't ask last time, which is weird that we didn't ask. We asked favorite sport between the two, but we didn't get down into this. What is your favorite track event? I think I know the answer to this, but
I think
anybody else,
if anyone knows,
anybody else outside
1500.
Yeah. So the 1500. Why?
The mile and the 1500 is just kind of like that. I don't know. There's a lot of symmetry to it. I think it's one of those events. Like I think about my peak fitness, and I was essentially going through 800 meters sub 2 minutes. And 2 minutes was a big deal in high school to be able to break 2 minutes, and I was trying to do that back to back. And there's something to that, like going from the fitness level in high school where breaking 2 minutes was a really big deal for me to being able to do it in workouts, and then trying to do it for twice in a row and being able to hold those paces. And once again, standing on the starting line going, oh, baby, here we go. We're about to roll at 59, 60 second pace for as long as we possibly can. I don't know. There's something to it, and it was where I saw a lot of success, and I just enjoyed it. I think I was pretty good at the 800 as well. I just didn't quite have the foot speed that some of those guys did, and so if it really came down to the last 100 meters, like, I was not out kicking Nick Simmons in the end of that, right? But I felt like when I moved up to the 1500 that I at least had a fighting chance in that event. So.
And then next question, favorite shoe to run in?
Oh, man.
I'm sure that's changed over the years.
They can't see off camera all the shoe boxes. I know they're not for you, but this guy's got 100 shoes.
My go-to in college and kind of post-collegiately was the Puma X-Tol. It was like it's really lightweight, like almost racing flat type shoe.
Interesting.
My favorite Brooks was the Brooks Axiom. And that was the first shoe I got when I became sponsored by them. I loved that shoe. It had a little bit of support to it, but once again, it was a little bit on the lighter side. So it was like, for an average Joe, it was considered like almost like a marathon racing shoe, but I just loved it and used it as like my day-to-day trainer. And then I ran in multitudes of different Brooks running shoes over the years and liked a lot of those. And currently I'm in the 880 by New Balance.
I've had those ones.
Good shoe.
That's a good shoe.
I like the responsiveness of it. The shoes and the responsiveness that is in the foam now is just so vastly different than what we had to run on. So.
Yeah. So the next one we have, we talked about favorite track event. What's your favorite track relay?
Oh, 4x4.
Thank
you.
That's not
I feel like that's everybody's.
Yeah.
It's the most exciting.
And for participant.
It's the most
At
exciting.
the end of the meet, it comes down to it. Like, I talk about this a lot. I took a lot of pride in being on the 18 4x4, especially in high school. We had a pretty good 4x4 team. We ran 3:21.7 at our regional meet and didn't even score a point. We got absolutely smoked. Cleveland Heights ran like 3:14 or something like that. Yeah,
Cleveland Heights is
it was ridiculous. But I took a lot of pride in that, being the distance guy that was on that 4x4 team. And then in college, I used to get pissed because all the sprinters would run under the bleachers and try to hide, and they didn't want to run the 4x4. And so I've tried to instill that in on you all, hopefully that like you want to earn the spot on that 4x4. And it was a big deal to have you on a really good 4x4, the fastest 4x4s we've had in school history. And then to have distance guys that are fighting for those positions, to me, is a really big deal. And so that's part of it to me, is like, I want people that want the stick at the end of the meet, because it can come down to it, you know. And it was a big deal, you know, in 2021 when our women's 4x4 almost won the conference meet. If Hope doesn't get tripped, we probably do, in the 4x4 with 4 distance runners. And for them to go out and essentially split a bunch of 60-second quarter miles was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just the 4x8's good. The DMR is exciting. The 4x1's exciting for its own reasons, but the 4x4 is just, it's so iconic.
Yeah,
I think it would be the 4x8 if they had it at national meets, but that's a whole other conversation.
There is a proposal that they're trying to either add
thank
DMR
God.
I've always,
4x8.
I said the 4x8 should be part of college track. I said that when
I think it's really
summer.
cool that we have it at our conference meet, especially because it is such a big deal in Ohio in high school. And like,
Huge deal in Ohio.
We took a lot of pride in that when I was in college, like trying to win that 4x8 indoors. And we had the 4x8 indoors too. We didn't have the DMR yet. So yeah, but anyways, yeah, the 4x4 for sure.
And then I'm really hoping this is the race I'm thinking of, but
I
what's
think
the
when
best
I wrote
race
this one,
you have ever watched?
when I wrote this one, I think there was one in mind.
It has to be the men's 1500.
Yeah.
This past
That's
year.
what I was thinking.
Now, I will say that a very close second race that I stayed up to watch this, it was in the Sydney Olympics, the 2000 men's 10K with Turgot and Gabor Selassie. Essentially, I think they ran like a 25 or 24 second last 200 meters. It was absolutely ridiculous how fast they ran the last 200 meters of that race. And it was the legend Paul Turgot, who had won like 8 consecutive or 12 consecutive cross-country world championships, and he had won the 4K and the 12K at World, and they used to run World Cross Country every single year.
Yeah.
But Gabor Selassie kept beating him on the track, and so there's stories of the two of them off. Turgot was running 200s to the point where he passed out, and they woke him up, and he's like, "I have to keep going." Gabor Selassie would, and it's just like these epic tales of time, right? Another really epic one was the 1980 800 and 1500 with Sebastian Coe. It was like,
He really likes that.
yeah,
I love
those
that
2 races. It's like Coe ran so terrible in the 800, and then came back and ran he timed everything perfectly in the 1500. So if you want to go watch those races, those are 2 pretty
I
good
think
ones.
the 4x16 from Penn Relays back in like 2000 where they start
where they were
walking on the
jogging?
track, where they start
Oh,
walking.
come on. I hated that one. That one sucks. I see that on Instagram all the time. I hate it. All right. Our last question is not track related.
Okay.
What is the best animal? Your favorite animal? The best animal. What is the best animal?
Goose.
Okay, well, we're talking about general animals, like
I mean,
species.
dogs are so freaking cool,
Right?
man, for
I know.
multitudes of reasons, but the tiger. It always comes
like
back
tigers?
to the tiger for me.
You're a tiger guy.
Could, like,
Interesting.
the bald eagle is pretty
I'm a-
freaking phenomenal as
Yeah.
well. Being able to fly and being that big and overpowering is just that's pretty phenomenal. But I don't know. There's something about the tiger to me.
You like
that
the
is just
tiger?
Really freaking
I feel like
cool.
dogs are the most versatile because
Dogs
they hang
are
out with us.
freaking awesome,
Incredible.
man.
My
Yeah.
personal favorite, if it's not a household pet, is the giraffe. Everybody watch themselves. You're not you, dude. Anyways,
I'm representing. I'm representing.
Sure.
yeah,
on fire.
we call him a giraffe because he's like
His length.
7. He's bigger
His
than
length,
Yao Ming.
yeah.
But
Lengthy.
yeah, I'm a giraffe guy. People say it's because I'm short. I don't think that's why. But I'm gonna go to the Cleveland Zoo, feed the giraffe. Yeah,
What's
it's
yours?
great. Well, yeah, what's yours?
I say tiger as well. That was all my
Polar
stuffed
bear's another
animals.
good
Polar bears
for
are
me.
sick. That's a good
Polar
one.
bears are
I had a
another good
collection of tiger stuffed animals
like,
when I was a kid. I'd go to the zoo and be
Yeah.
like, "Please,
Dude,
mom."
the polar bear has like clear fur.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I see. I could go. I wish the Cleveland Zoo had a polar bear.
They used to.
I could go and just watch the polar
They
bear.
used to have one, I
for-
think. Like when I was
One of them
really,
was
when we were like
acronym.
really little, I think they had them.
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, like when me and Dylan were younger. Well, everybody was young. Yeah, but when we were like little kids, I think they had the polar bear. I like penguins too. Penguins are funny.
Yeah.
That's a
They
good take.
sliding
There's
around.
so many different
Yeah.
kinds of penguins.
2018 or 19 when Nationals indoors was in Boston. We stayed the whole week in Boston, and we went to the aquarium.
I love
And they had a
Boston
bunch
so
of
much.
penguins.
Oh, yeah.
Their aquarium is pretty freaking
Yeah.
sweet too.
In Chicago, Shed's Aquarium, huge deal out there. Really nice aquarium. They got the beluga whales. The beluga
Oh,
whales
wow.
they're funny, and then they'll do like a show, and it'll be like they're feeding the beluga whales, and the beluga whales are doing tricks, but then the penguins are running around the stands like free.
No,
free
let's
roaming.
turn this into a nature
These things like
podcast. Let's do it.
we can do that. But anyways, so the things are running around the stand, so like they're coming up to you and stuff. They have like attendants there because you can't do anything weird to the penguins, but like not like
valid.
that.
That's valid.
But like you can't do
Yeah.
it. You
People
know,
are stupid,
random ass
yeah.
aquarium people. Like you can't do anything weird to the penguins. So that's yeah. Anyways,
On that note, thank you guys
Here's
so
our
much.
episode.
Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the
that's how we
next
closed
episode
out the mental health
of
episode.
Relax.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you've made it all the way to the end of this episode, make sure you give us 5 stars on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube, and make sure to share this podcast with a friend. We're going to have another episode coming soon. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you in the next one.